Hey, did you know that Feral North has a whole sheep and cattle herding mechanic? It's a pretty critical part of the game and the relationship between the two characters in the story, but I don't really show it all too often because, well, the sheep are kinda dumb. It's all pretty basic and works well enough for simple open areas, but quickly falls apart when there's any kind of complexity to the environment. So today, we fix that. The first thing to do is rewrite everything. I'm moving to a Boids algorithm, which is a really popular technique for flocking behaviors. And, well, would you look at that? A group of sheep is known as a flock, so seems like a perfect match. The Boid algorithm itself is actually really simple. The idea is to just trade off 3 different influences for each unit, or Boid, in the flock. Separation, each Boid moves away from its nearby neighbors. Alignment, each Boid adjusts its direction to match its neighbors. And cohesion, each Boid moves toward the center of its neighbors. These 3 simple rules can produce amazing, really natural looking behaviors. For sheep herding to work, I think we just need to introduce a 4th rule, which is avoidance. Each Boid moves away from a pursuer, otherwise known as Chesley. Now we can calculate these 4 influences, blend them together, and voila, we have a destination for the sheep to move towards. With these simple rules, herding is much more fluid and natural, with the sheep trading off sticking with the flock against their own fear and breaking away from the group if you get too close. The best part is that all these parameters are tunable, so different flocks can have quite different behaviors. For example, farm sheep stay in a tighter unit, and they're less afraid of you, allowing you to get closer before they break away. Feral sheep are less familiar with sheepdogs, so they're easier to scare. Coos don't stick as close together, and they allow you to get pretty close without scaring. It's honestly a pretty special feeling to see these sorts of behaviors coming out of an algorithm that doesn't exactly model sheep herding, but just comes as a consequence of these simple rules, giving a surprisingly natural result. I'm feeling much better about the feature now, but there's still a lot left to do. The next problem is the commands your human gives you. Her current instructions are way too ambiguous. Does turn left mean your left, her left, the flock's left? What does the flock's left even mean? What if you and your human are on opposite sides of the flock and she wants you to go backwards? Does that mean bring the flock towards her or behind you? I watched a lot of sheepdog videos to understand how the commands work and found that it's much more intuitive to use clockwise and anti-clockwise, because it's the same from all perspectives. And that's really the primary means of moving the sheep anyways, by swinging in these wide arcs around them. It's a really simple change, but it gave her instructions much more clarity, and it meant I could condense left, right, and backwards into just 2 clockwise and anti-clockwise commands. I also added an ease up command to give you feedback when you're stressing the flock and they're going to start breaking away, giving you more reason to pay attention to her whistles even if you already know the destination. Speaking of which, up to now it's been pretty simple open areas where the destination is quite obvious, but what if we want something more complicated with multiple routes, or even situations where your human knows the goal but you as the dog don't? Besides, the player has agency. They can technically take the sheep anywhere they want, and she needs to know how to adapt her instructions to get you and the flock back on track. I was working on a scary where you have to gather several small flocks and bring them to a barge. This island has lots of twists, turns, and branching paths, and you can gather all the sheep into one large flock, or keep them as multiple small ones and complete them one at a time. And at this point, the shepherd command system was really starting to fall apart. Her instructions were basically nonsense. I think there's a really good opportunity here to enforce the relationship by working together. We just need to give her a bit more intelligence in analyzing the current situation beyond just a predefined route. So again, we're scrapping and rewriting. What I came up with is something I'm calling a route mesh, and it's a pretty simple idea, but it's been working really well. The concept is that we always have one final destination, but at any moment there are multiple options for how to get there. So first, she'll look at the current position of the flock and find the nearest node on the route mesh. Next, she'll determine the direction from the nearest node to the next linked node towards the destination on the mesh. Now, when she gives you an instruction, it's to get you towards the next node on the route mesh instead of to the final direction. This way, she doesn't tell you to push the flock through a wall, but can instead intelligently guide you around it. Obviously, as the player, you don't know she's doing this, but if someone's giving you directions, they typically don't send you barreling straight through every obstacle. They give you logical directions around walls and lakes and what have you. What's important is that all the directions in sequence get you to your destination in a logical and relatively optimal way. And that's exactly what we get here. The most important part is that she doesn't stick to a route. Every frame she decides a new one based on the current situation. This way, if you scare the flock or they go off course, or if you just ignore her commands, as long as a new route becomes the optimal one, she can switch course and provide updated directions. So basically, it's Google Maps, but for sheep herding. With this, I can make levels as complex as I want, quickly define the route mesh, and she's good to go. I can already anticipate the comments asking why I didn't use the existing Unity nav mesh, and the answer is that performance is much better with this, as I burst compile it and kept it quite lightweight, but more importantly, the instructions make much more sense. Think about it, just because you can technically walk a path on a nav mesh doesn't mean that it's the logical route for guiding a whole flock. This gives me control to define sensible routes that don't feel silly, but all the movement still works off the nav mesh, and this route mesh is only for the whistle commands, so if you want to squeeze 20 sheep along a foot-wide rock over a lake, all the power to you. She'll adapt her commands to help you get out of that mess, she just won't put you into that mess in the first place. Ultimately though, you as the player are in complete control of the route you take, so it's a nice balance between player agency and letting her still shepherd in an intelligent manner. There's so much more that I've been working on, like cutscenes, story beats, day-night cycles, and all sorts of polish, but I think I'll leave those for a future devlog. Thank you all so much for watching, I can't wait to hear your feedback, and I'll see you next time.